Oh yeah, sexy biscuits. Nice.
Long boys blues, 1975. YouTubers on the rise. Reviewing games late at night and sometimes friends. But Long boys blues, 1975.
Hey YouTube, Numbers Post 1975, and welcome back to another nostalgic memories of video. This is a big one, a very, very important one, and probably one I should have done a lot sooner than I'm doing now. But I guess one of the reasons it's this late in this series, especially since this series does comprise of a few, my memories about, well, a lot of my memories about the various systems that I have owned. I think it's because I didn't own it in its prime. That's not to say, I didn't own it, a couple of generations or so after, my Mega Drive and stuff like that, because I got a version of it, I should say, in 1991, but I didn't own it upon its, launch and when it cast such a big shadow across other systems at the time, not just in Japan, but, in the West and in this country. It's weird because I own one now. I bought one about 7 years ago. I bought two about 7 years ago. One's boxed, one isn't. I probably could have got them, but this video isn't, or this series is not necessarily about show and tell. It's about sharing memories. And then a few years ago, probably around about that same time as well, I have a video on it. I have videos on my PC Engine pickups. I bought a brand new old Turbografx, not 16, Turbografx UK model from I watched the video. I'll put it in the doohickey down below, and yeah, it's a very weird and interesting story, and while it's a PAL machine, I had to have it. I just had to have it. But anyway, I've got ahead of myself. Nostalgic memories of the PC Engine. Now you're saying, but Dave, you didn't have a PC Engine back in the day. No, I didn't, but it cast such a shadow over the Mega Drive, especially my Japanese Mega Drive when I was buying import games. Before UK games were released, although UK games still had Japanese ROMs on them as well in those days. So when I bought a UK game, I was still playing the Japanese one in 60 hertz and cool stuff like that. But there's no denying, for a system that I didn't own, for the first couple of years of the Mega Drive, 3 or 4 years to be, in fact, to be exact, really was just there. It was the main competitor. I had nothing but respect for it and envy as well, because I made my bed with importing my Japanese Mega Drive, but there's no denying I thought the PC Engine was an absolutely fantastic machine. And if you are of my generation and my age, and I remember when this kind of obsession with it began, which was 1987, my first year at secondary school, but the PC Engine is the stuff of legend in this country. It's the stuff of absolute legend, yet it never got an official release. It was supposed to, or there were rumours from magazines, but it didn't. Popped up in a few grey importers. Again, I'm jumping ahead of myself. I think there may have been a very limited release in, was it Spain, in some parts of Europe? But essentially, it never got released in the West. Well, it got released in North America, but it wasn't the PC Engine, it was the Turbografx. I don't know whether they thought that Americans like stuff to be bigger and stuff like that, but why you would change the design from, quite frankly, one of the best and my favourite looking console of all time, I honestly don't know. But going back to like 1987, 1988, I had a Master System in 1987. I was an absolute Sega fanboy. I loved the arcades. You know my love affair and my story of how I came to have or import a Japanese Mega Drive. But before I started saving to import it myself from the black and white importers at the back of the magazines such as CVG. Well, it was CVG back then and not Mean Machines. Mean Machines were still apart, a couple of pages in the middle of CVG. But in 1987, right, first year at lunchtimes, this one book, I'm sure you will remember it, this one book, there were 3 of them eventually, and it was Computer and Video Games Complete Guide to Consoles, because we had the Master System and we had the NES, and they were, big deals, and they were, consoles was here again, we moved beyond 2600 days and stuff like that. These consoles were big business, not so much the NES in this country, but definitely the Master System. So there was a whole slew of new ones coming out, there's Atari Lynx was on the horizon, the Game Boy, we're talking like if you import them Japan first, Mega Drive, PC Engine, Conix was still apparently going to happen in those days, CD-ROM for the PC Engine, 7800, But yeah, and so you could devote whole magazines to it because CVG used to have 2 pages in the middle called Mean Machines, and or two, three, 4 pages, and they would cover NES and Master System. They'd be English games, but then it would cover the PC Engine and Japanese Mega Drive games and stuff like that. And there was people my age gamers, we ate this stuff up, these amazing new machines from the land of the rising sun. Even then you're like, Japan is the home of state of the art tech. It was the excitement was palpable. It was in the air, especially if you're a kid at school, in secondary school like me. And so where it really came to a fever pitch was one of my friends in my form, a guy called Matt Watson. I've told this story before, and he had a mate called Lee Hellard who was a complete twat. He would brag vicariously through other people. I'll get to that. But his dad, because they were loaded. His dad, he was looking to buy him a computer or something for Christmas, and so he started buying these CVG Complete Guide to Console books. They were brilliant, and he started looking because that was the first option because he primarily wanted it for games. And I remember these. Oh, I'd love to know your stories if you remember them. The first one was yellow, then there was a red one, and then there was a pants blue one that didn't have any screenshots or so much or hardware take, it just reviewed games. But basically, to cover all these new machines, which pretty much all were imports at this point apart from the NES and the Master System, the whole front of the book would be breakdowns of the system. It would be like page 1, then it would be the PC Engine, it would say number of sound channels, number of colours on screen, number of sprites on screen, overall palette, stuff like that, and then you talk about the specs of it and give you a price, a rounded up price, that they would take from, taking an average of all the importers, and he did it for that, the Mega Drive, the Game Boy, because that was imported at this point, Conix, it never came out. Yeah, like that share was going to happen. You know what I'm talking about if you read this book, and Conix. And then they mentioned the CD system for the PC Engine. In itself was CD system for a console. And I opted to import Mega Drive because I was a Sega fanboy at this point. But in this one book, we drooled over it every lunchtime. We absolutely drooled over it. Just again and again reading the specs, like 4 or 5 of us around it, looking at the game, seeing reviews for Shinobi. They gave Shinobi like 89%. If you played it now, or played it then, you would know it wasn't arcade perfect, but these static screenshots, you're just like, I had the Master System version, but I've never seen anything like this. It looks just like the arcade. Chase HQ looked fantastic. I have no idea why, because it's a crap game on the PC Engine, but big blown up screenshots, and that got like 80%. And then they had Space Harrier, which wasn't even going to be on, the Mega Drive was in it. It wasn't going to be on the Mega Drive. You're going to get Space Harrier 2. We don't want Harrier 2, we want Space Harrier. And it showed all these initial games such as oh bollocks, the Iron one with the 2 ninjas. I should know this because I own it. You know the one I mean, the Iron with the 2 ninjas spinning ropes around and stuff like that. Why can't I remember you? But then R-Type was just jaws dropped. I had that on the Master System. I thought it was pretty shiny and fantastic, port of the arcade, but PC Engine jaws dropped. And then you saw there were shoe cards and memories and stuff like that, and they would have to split it across 2 cards, but like little credit cards. And maybe I should have got my console. And the machine was like 5 inches by 5 inches. It was just absolutely pure minimalist and white and fantastic. And I dare say Apple fucking learned a trick or two off that, that design. Just this one magazine, we just went through it and through it and through it. And one thing that stuck in all the minds of all the kids, was Dave's imported a Japanese Mega Drive, and I saved up the 189 quid and don't regret that to this day. But the one thing that was always in the back of my mind was, what if I went the route of the PC Engine? Because I cannot expect, there were Sega games on it that weren't on the Mega Drive, or going to be on the Mega Drive, years later. It had more shoot 'em ups than you could shake a shitty stick at. It had a CD-ROM system which was just out of my league back then, in that cool case where you put both units together and you had an oval cover and stuff like that. It had, amazing games like New Zealand Story. We were looking at it and we were drooling, and even though it explained it in the magazine, 8-bit system, but was it the same processor as the NES? Maybe a little faster, I don't know, but it had a 16-bit graphics processor. But it was like a Amiga Atari ST thing, kind of, it was a platform with the Mega Drive. No one considered the Mega Drive superior to it, no one considered it superior to the Mega Drive. They were of the same ilk or capacity. I'm not explaining it properly, but yeah, and it just, for a machine that even at this point we never knew was going to get released. That was never going to happen. it was never on the cards. Obviously, it's made by NEC in collaboration with Hudson Soft. When it was released in Japan in 1987, it was huge. It beat the Mega Drive, thrashed the Mega Drive in Japan. Mega Drive wasn't that successful in Japan. And it, it overtook sales of the Famicom. Obviously, at that point, the Famicom had been out since 1983, but it was absolutely massive in Japan. It had a huge library of games. It was just this wondrous thing, it's like Zion in the Matrix 1, which is, you see it in magazines and people would talk of it, but you would never ever see it in person. So you wondered, like, is it really this good? I only experienced it through magazines. And and then later on, this guy, Matt Watson, gave this magazine to me, and I just read it again and again and again when I was waiting for my Japanese Mega Drive to wing its way over to me. Which would eventually be in 1988 when that was released, but obviously it was previewed in this. This must have been very late 87, early 88 then, this magazine. And he gave it to me, and he'd ordered a PC Engine. He became like the fucking legend at secondary school. Matt Watson's getting a PC Engine for Christmas. And the story goes, so he told us, that the PC Engine arrived and his dad opened the box and looked at it. Because it would have been about 250 quid to import back then in 1987, 88. 87 was when it was released, which is a lot of money. I don't know what that is with inflation. Feel free to do it, but I'm guessing it's quite a lot. And he opened it and he looked at this tiny little thing like this and just went, what? There's nothing to this, absolutely nothing to it, and sent it back and got a refund. Never even tried it. I don't know what games he got with it. Never even tried it, and then dropped 500 quid on an Amiga for his, can we say, spoiled brat, for his mate for Christmas. That story in itself became legendary at my school, which is, he just sent it back. His dad just went, it's tiny, well, there's nothing to, I'm not dropping 200, 300 quid on this, and dropped it on an Amiga, because it's a computer, even though we just played games back then. We never did any of the computing stuff in the Amiga. I personally, lynch me in the comments, by the way, I don't care, or down below I should say, I just think the PC Engine graphics, on the majority of stuff just shat on the Amiga. Just saying. The Amiga's got better sound, the Amiga's a better machine, I don't doubt that. But this is just Ickle Dave's mind, so that kind of warped my mind. Anyway, I had that magazine, and the next magazine came out, still waiting for my Mega Drive, and you saw more of these amazing games on the PC Engine. Then they showed you the CD titles, like Gradius 2, Vulcan Venture, as it was for me, and more of these arcade games that I love from Westwood Ho and Minehead were making it onto this system. And fever pitch for it just grew and grew and grew. And it's not just with me, everyone at school, everyone I knew, if you talk to people now from back then, just went, the PC Engine, thanks to those magazines, and the little bit in the middle of CVG, was just, everyone knew of it. And so then when I got my Mega Drive, it was still, I would still see in magazines and read stuff about it and see games that I wanted that weren't on my Mega Drive. So even though, as I mentioned at the start of this video, it was casting a shadow over my Mega Drive, even though I was completely and utterly happy. I mean, obviously, basically, I couldn't afford both systems. I mean, like I said, we'll explain how we did in 1991, a little bit later. But yeah, it was an ever-present threat to the Mega Drive. And then obviously CVD ran a story that was going to get an official release. And so everyone, then in the back of my mind, a little thought entered that maybe I'll get one. I've got to mention this point. My brother imported a PC Engine. Gray imported it from Japan. And then we all thought it was shit. I kind of twigged why. I thought it was shit, and why didn't the graphics look anything like the screenshots in the magazines? But it had an absolutely botched conversion to PAL, so the colours were all wrong and half the palette wasn't even there. He still bought loads of games for it, which came into benefit a little bit later on, shall we say. But yeah, so then it was announced it was going to get an official release, and I remember around about the time we heard this, we used to go downtown on Saturday, all me and my mates get a bus in downtown, watch a movie come on, but we used to go in this place called the Model Shop, still there in Bristol in the centre, and they would sell import games, and I would buy, import Mega Drive games for my Mega Drive, especially when they weren't out in the UK, and then also when they were out in the UK, but I wanted titles such as Bare Knuckle and not the shitty Streets of Rage covered version, because Bare Knuckle's a much better box art. I was a snob back then as well. But he had a PC Engine box, and it's the first time I saw one physically, at least in a box, in the glass cabinets behind the counter. And me and all my mates, just looked at it, it's fucking PC Engine. It's like a shaft of light was coming down, the rest of the room went black. And all the 5 kids were just standing like that. It's a PC Engine. But yeah, that was the only time I saw one, like in the high street. Like I said, my brother had one, but it was a botched power version. But that's the only time I saw one with the potential being, because we never saw a price on it, but the potential of being for sale in United Kingdom. And then it was announced that they were never, ever going to release it. And, even though I possibly couldn't afford it, but such was the law that this machine had, I was disappointed. And the whole, country was disappointed of people who wanted it, because you could argue that if they got it out before the SNES, it could have and would have competed with the Mega Drive. There is no doubt about it. If only because such a fan base had been created ready for it because of, these legendary free complete guide to console books by CVG. So that was just an absolute, absolute pisser. And so then I next became aware of it, not in the form of PC Engine. The other cool thing was, in magazines they would show you this. There were so many versions of it. There was the PC Engine, stock unit, which is the one I have. Then there was the Turbografx, which had a different output. Then there was the Turbografx 2, different color again. This is the one we're getting with the PC Engine Mini, which I have coming in March, which was never released in Europe. So why didn't they just give us a Turbografx? Which I'm glad they didn't, or, a Japanese PC Engine one, but anyway. So the Turbografx 2 had something taken away, I can't remember. And then there was the PC Engine Shuttle, that was basically a PC Engine that looked like a shuttle. Then there was the Turbografx, which is on my list of machines I would love to own, even though it's fully backward compatible with the PC Engine, but there's only 5 titles for it. But it's got Ghouls and Ghosts on it, which is pretty much arcade perfect. But yeah, there was that, and that absolutely tanked. But so, it's... The cool factor and the wow factor just kept growing and growing for the PC Engine. Then anyway, all of a sudden, thanks to a game, this is how I realised what it was, a game called PC Kid and PC Kid 2, Bonk, basically, in North America, being advertised in CVG and stuff like that, and the import selections at the back of magazines. I was a big fan of Marvel comics. I was reading, I used to read Spectacular Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man, and there was this double spread page, and it talked about NES around about the time that Super Mario Bros. 3 was being released, and then the launch of the Sega Genesis. I'm like, it's called Genesis. Weird. And then there was a Turbografx 16, so this must have been a couple of years later, actually, or maybe the next year later. And I thought, what is that fuck ugly console? And then I saw this game called Bonk, Bonk's Revenge, and then they had screenshots, and I went, pretty sure that's PC Kid. Pretty sure this is the PC Engine. And then I saw the control pad, which looked exactly the same but was black. And yeah, I'm like, oh my god, the PC Engine got a bloody release in North America. That's not fair. And the CD unit came out. I mean, obviously, it absolutely tanked. But, I mean, its launch was absolutely botched, and only in certain areas and stuff like that. And obviously they called them turbo chips, which is the stupidest name ever. So I knew they were shoe cards, so I knew this was the PC Engine. But yeah, I just remember thinking, wow, United Kingdom, wow, Europe, we got absolutely sticked on this. And then the weird thing is, completely forgot about that, completely happy with my Mega Drive. We went to Boston to stay with my dad's brother, who emigrated to America years and years and years ago. And this is the first time I got to play a NES and realised that you could rent video games in video stores, way more than you could here. Only a few did it here then, and that you could actually rent Sega games on the NES. That blew my mind. Anyway, so part of the holiday, we were there for 3 weeks and stuff like that. Part of the holiday, my parents rented a car, and we did this little separate thing for a week where we drove around. And I remember we were staying in like a motel. And just over the road down a little bit was one of those 4 or 5 shops, and there was a second-hand video game store in there. And even though I had my Mega Drive, and I saved all my money, converted into dollars, this was a vacation where I got, I bought, what did I buy? Atomic Robo Kid, Fantasia, that was a fucking mistake, and one Hellfire game for imported from my Mega Drive and brought them home with me. Not imported, bought them when I was on holiday there. And yeah, so, I was more than happy with my Mega Drive, but we were in this second-hand video game store, and I was looking for Genesis games, and there I saw Turbografx on the top. It wasn't boxed at this point. I don't know if it was still tanking, or, it was, I think it was $40, unboxed, $40, all the leads, 1 pad, 3 games, Keith Courage and Alpha Zone, shit, still have my original one, Splatterhouse, which I gave to Rich from UTech USA, because I have a Japanese copy and he had a Turbo Express, and so I thought, I don't need 2 copies of the game, pass it on, share the love, that's what, video games are about. What was the other one? Ninja Spirits is the name I couldn't remember at the start of this video. And I thought, you know what, fuck it. I don't even know if we'll be able to convert this to run on a UK TV or even UK power, but $40, I'm taking a pop at this because it was, you know, me getting a PC Engine of sorts. And so we brought it back to United Kingdom. We found a dodgy Sparky, and yeah, he converted it to RGB and converted it to, well, he didn't even convert it, he just bought a power unit, I think, and passed it on to us that it would work on UK power. And yeah, I loved it. I loved Ninja Spirits, I loved Splatterhouse. Even though my brother built up a collection of Japanese games at this point, and he had Splatterhouse. So I love Splatterhouse, but and this is part of the reason that I know, is it valuable or not? I don't know. I have no sort of attachment to the US one because of the pink mask and the cuts, because I already played my brother's Japanese version. But anyway, so I was like, I got a PC Engine, you know. China Warrior, it came with China Warriors as well, which I have a soft spot for, but the box art is shite. Because the games came in CD cases and then with boxes around, didn't they? That was a big thing in North America. We never did that, especially with like CDs as well, wasn't it? And I was super happy with it. And then I imported through the back of a magazine a adapter to run run PC Engine games on it, which is still somewhere in my collection or archive collection. I wish I knew where, because I have a UK Turbografx, which we'll get to later on, albeit briefly. And they're worth a fortune, go for so much money now. And it's even basically just like open circuit that you shove in the front. Looks ugly as fuck, and shove shoe card into it. But so I got that, and so then I play all my brother's games on it, and loved it, and started importing Japanese games and a couple of North American games to play on it. But it didn't get the love and attention it deserved as my Mega Drive, because that was my main machine. But I loved it, and I really, really, really enjoyed it, and you know, got to play stuff. Never got to play R-Type on it, which was crushing, because that was because at that point importing a US one, even though I think the machine had tanked, because it was the full game on one card, big memory card, was amazing. And then I think, I can't remember, but basically one day it died. Much later, because I think when I moved out and stuff like that. I for some reason I boxed this Turbografx up and put it in the attic. Even though I eventually sold my Mega Drive and sold my Super Famicom, and then ended up with a PlayStation 1 and stuff like that. I went through rinse and repeat all these consoles, but completely forgot about this Turbografx, and I didn't break it back out until 2000 and what was it, 7? When I came back, for my 4 years in Canada, and because I didn't have a system to play, I broke it out of the attic, had all the games, and then found my brother's Japanese games, and that was my gaming system for a while, and that's when I was, properly back. And this is before I had a YouTube channel, but that's when I think the bug, and then reminded me of my Mega Drive and having to get my collection put back together. That's when I was properly becoming into retro again. So I was just full circle, kind of. It was 4 years after it was launched when I got my Turbografx, but I got my PC Engine. I got it, and then it died. It died, and I was gutted, and I probably could have fixed it, but I didn't know anything about this big retro community then, so it got trashed and stuff like that. I really regret not hanging on to it. If only so I could have kept the case for a pie. And do you know what? And then years later, thanks to Virtual Console, I started playing PC Engine games again and really getting back into it. And then obviously this whole retro thing on my YouTube channel kicked back in, but it's more so the early days when I didn't even have a PC Engine. I cannot explain this shadow, as I keep saying it, cast, and what a big deal and legend the PC Engine was, even though it never got released in the United Kingdom, and it was botched to launch. It eventually tanked North America. Because of that, I got one. But the PC Engine is just a legendary system. It's absolutely fantastic. It's that little system that punches so far above its weight. I mean, it still carried on competing with the Super Famicom for a bit, didn't it? I mean, unbelievable. And obviously it had no extra hardware in it, but with the introduction of CD and storage and stuff like that, it was pushing the medium of games so much. And then obviously there was the combined one, the Duo, and this Duo 2, where the CD and the card were combined together, and that's something I would absolutely love. But even when it came out, and we're talking coming up to me being on PlayStation territory, I still looked at it and just thought, I want that. That's amazing. Couldn't justify it then, certainly can't justify it now. And then I guess the end of this story is, about 7 years ago, I managed to find one boxed, and I bought it. and it was all converted and doohickeyd up and stuff like that. It's got an EverDrive now. And then I found another one that was unboxed and I bought as a backup because I love the system so. Oh, I got backup Mega Drives coming out of the ass, but I love the system so much I had to make it future proof for me. So I finally got my PC Engine as an PC Engine. And then out of curiosity, when I found out, reading the story about the weird botched club book, kinda very limited release of a PAL Turbografx that was grey and ran at 50 hertz, but would run North American games and wasn't called a 16, was just called a Turbografx. I've got a video on it, and it was 30 quid on eBay, super cheap. And the fact of owning a brand new boxed, unopened, old system, even though it was the shit PAL version, UK version, just really tickled my fancy. So I just thought, I just wanted to have a brand new Turbografx at this point. Watch my video. It's a very interesting story how the whole thing played out and how it just meh. But yeah, and so I bought that, and I still play that from time to time, even though you could argue I should just stick with my PC Engine and my EverDrive. I don't know. It's fun to play all avenues of all systems you own. But basically, what I'm trying to say is the PC Engine has a massive part in my gaming history and life, even though I never owned it from day one. It still, was it was still there in my mind, as in, did I make well, I think I did the right choice with the Mega Drive when I could have gone this route because Sega was on it. It's just something I have so much fondness and nostalgia for. And then we come full circle with obviously Konami, who now own Hudson Soft, are releasing, it comes out next month, the Turbografx Mini in North America, the PC Engine Mini in Japan, and the PC Engine Core Graphics in Europe, even though it never got released in Europe. I guess they wanted to split it into 3 territories. So, it tanked in North America. It was huge in Japan, but it's left this legacy wherever, people like me, kids, got into gaming, got into this, what I believe was the first big proper leap in consoles, to 16-bit. It's left this legacy and it's come full circle, and it's just absolutely fantastic. I've waffled to shit on this, because this is all off the top of my head, but I just wanted to convey, for something that I didn't own for 4 years, and even then I owned the wrong variant of it, and didn't get the proper one until I was a grown adult. I just have so much love, nostalgia, and just memories, although most of them you could argue in magazine form, of the PC Engine. Anyway, as always, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on the PC Engine, if you are my generation, and do you remember those CVG magazines, and was it as big a deal to you? And more so when it got cancelled and was never going to be released. As always, I'd love to know what you think. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you later.